So that brings me to an interesting thing. I wanted to look at this. We've touched on this already now, right? But I want to look at this Reddit post I came across while I was catching up on the news today. It just took my eye, and I feel like it's a really good conversation point because it's something people are talking about in relation to WoW and Final Fantasy XIV, and it ties directly into what we've just been talking about Zereth Mortis and the systems of Zereth Mortis and whether or not you should catch up and how catch up and stuff should work in Zereth Mortis and what have you. So, question in title. Just to clarify, I recently played a lot of different MMOs, and I realised that a lot of them aren't that strict when choosing your player class anymore. New World being completely dynamic by weapon choice. Same with Final Fantasy XIV and Tezo. That's the Elder Scrolls Online, just in case you don't know. Not really having classes in general. Obviously, something like that would require WoW to allow any race to be any class, but I'm on the side that it doesn't really matter. Only class that could be problematic could be Demon Hunter, I guess. Why I come up with this is that I feel a lot of my older characters, progress, achievements is kind of lost. Sure, a lot is account-wide right now, but it's different feeling playing the game, the same character for X years instead of hopping alts every now and then. Here's the crux of it, right? Would you prefer having one main character that you play and dynamically switch your player class whenever you need it? Or would you stick with the old system? Character X is class Y. What's the shout on this? What's people's opinions on it? No, I like having alts. I like having different characters to do different things. For WoW, I prefer it how it is. Being able to play a single character with all classes would hit the 4th spec spot for me. I gotta say, when people bring up the idea of 4th specs for characters, I'm like, oh no, I don't want a 4th spec on any of my characters. Holy shit. There's at least one spec that I never touch on most of my classes now. I like having to log on to different characters. One character is sweet, better for naming conventions, and I cannot think of a grind I want to redo. I would love to only play my main. I hate alts. I hate not having all my achievements. I like alts because I want to play all my different races. I like having alts, but also I don't have time to grind on my main. I like alts, have a completely different backstory and everything for each of them. Yeah, I do that as well, Panicacre. I absolutely do that. So my alts on WoW, even if they're ones that I've barely ever played and I don't like, I've got some kind of like very basic RP in mind for all of them. You know, I've got like the most basic kind of RP scenario for their history and shit in my head for every single one of them. And like, I do tend to play them with that character in mind. Especially as it doesn't matter often how I'm playing them because they're like an alt that I barely touch. Tali, do you think things would be better if Blizz would just give us everything up front so we don't have to do keys or raid in the grind? No, I don't actually think that. No, I'll explain my take on this. All races should be able to do all classes. The problem is they keep coming out with different specs races. Lol. Well, yeah, exactly, and you'd want them to, right? That's the thing. But mind you, like a game which only has like one main that you play. Does that as well with like Final Fantasy does that. Final Fantasy brings out like a new race every expansion, and the only way to then play that race, if you want to keep all your progress, right, is to race change and pay for it. Granted, it's quite cheap. Playing always felt bad because of the reputation, achievements, and so on. They can't balance 32 specs at the moment. 4 specs, no. Exactly, I agree with that as well. Why complicate things, right? I would always rather whenever people bring up the 4th spec thing, I'm always like, I'd rather like they do literally like a 13th of the work and make a new class instead. I'm a goblin, to be honest. I only have alts to make gold. After Legion, everyone should be able to be a demon hunter. Yeah, I actually agree with that, by the way. I love new classes. I think new classes are great, and I think that new classes are a really good part of any new expansion. Think about it. All the best expansions have a new class. Wrath, Mists, Legion. And I think one of the reasons they are such good expansions is because having a new class is super fun. Do I think WoW needs a new class? Absolutely fucking not. It's already got loads and like a really good selection, and it's impossible to balance now as it is. Does it need a new class? No. Do I still want a new class in an expansion? Hell yeah, it feels awesome. It's super fun. Balancing wouldn't be much of a nightmare if they didn't have multiple systems layering on top of each other. Okay, so but the thing is, like, WoW is always going to have more things affecting balance than Final Fantasy XIV is. So Final Fantasy XIV has no talents, right? So it's, you know, to a much higher degree than with WoW, every Dragoon will play the same. You know, and the difference is how powerful your gear is. And every bard will play the same. The difference is how powerful your gear is, right? There's not the customization of abilities and playstyle that WoW has, but that's like a major part of WoW. And likewise, Final Fantasy XIV doesn't tend to have the like ability effects and on-use effects on gear that WoW has as well. So that's another balancing thing there. Like there are no tier set bonuses, for example, in Final Fantasy XIV, which is something that everyone likes about Warcraft, and I like that. I like the customization of talents and stuff. I also like in Final Fantasy XIV, by the way, that they don't have that. It's almost like I like one game for doing one thing, and I like another game for doing another thing, even though they're different things. Almost like the reason I play two different games is because they're different. And something can be like different from something, but equally good and not worse. Yeah, and trinkets as well, another great example of that. And I really like trinkets. I really like finding my trinkets and stuff. You can't like two games at once, silly. Yeah, I know. So anyway, my take on this is like interesting to hear your responses, right? Because I have a take on this. And my take is that, quite similar to what I just said, actually, I like that I can do everything on one character in Final Fantasy XIV. Like, genuinely. I really enjoy it. And especially like because the story and the RP, and I don't mean RP between different players. I don't mean like, organized role play. I mean RP is in like my personal headcanon, the story of my character and what have you. The RP is so much stronger in Final Fantasy XIV, and my kind of connection to my character is so strong because you see him in all the cutscenes and you're doing all the stuff, and it's a really involved story, and everyone loves you, and Alizé wants to kiss you, and Alphinaud wants to kiss you, and Estinian wants to kiss you, and like all the other people want to kiss you. Everyone wants to kiss you, and you're like, yeah, okay, cool, of course you do. Look at me, I'm amazing. And I love that in Final Fantasy XIV, and I love that when there's a new class, I can just, I can go, oh, I want to try that class, and I don't want to, I want to do it on this character. So in Final Fantasy XIV, I have, I'm still waiting in the queue, my God. So in Final Fantasy XIV, I've just switched to Sage, for example. You can see everyone wants to kiss my character, and can you blame them? Look at them. Look at how amazing they are. Look at them. I'm not above being attracted to my on-screen avatar, but even better than kissing my character, I want my character to kiss Evitel's character. Now we're talking. Now we're getting interesting. Cat girls are better. Evie was talking about changing her character to a cat girl, and I was like, do it. Then my character will really want to kiss you. But, I think Thaïlanders are the best, personally. I think they're awesome. So I just changed to Sage, and it's great that, okay, I have to level from 70, and so there's still a leveling element to it, but I love that I can do everything on this character. I think that's fantastic. And I'm, obviously, I don't lose any kind of story progress or any other progress. And I think that's fantastic. I also like having alts in WoW. I think it's like something that I enjoy, and I enjoy having a bunch of characters that are all different races. And I like that when I want to play Warlock, I have to swap over to my Warlock character who's undead and like has a completely different RP headcanon. So this is my WoW character setup. I love that I've got all these characters, right? Here's my main, Mivamwi. Looks like I just sold something on the auction house. Splendid, don't mind if I do. And she's the one that I do like everything on. She is my version of Tali Mivamwi in Final Fantasy XIV, right? Would I like to kiss Mivamwi? Not so much, if I'm honest. But I love her with all my heart. And then, like, I've got my Paladin, I've got my Death Knight, and, like, they're all incredibly different, not just in how they look, but in, like, the headcanon that I've got for them as a result. And it's fun to play different characters of different races who look different, and I enjoy having Horde and Alliance to do them all on as well. And I'm a bit behind on a lot of these characters this expansion, it's got to be said. But I've still got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 max level characters in Shadowlands, despite not having played that much in the last few months, just kind of keeping up with stuff. So, and that's really fun. And I do enjoy, when I want to play Warlock, it's not just a case of swapping a weapon and I become a Warlock. I'm also now undead. And I'm on the Horde, and that's different. That's like even more different, and that's fun to me. Like, that's something I like about having alts in WoW, and something that I wouldn't want to lose. However, the Final Fantasy XIV system of being able to do everything on one character is objectively more user-friendly, and in the long run, probably more fun. So my argument is, why not do both? And how do you make it both? Quite easily. It's just what we were talking about earlier, isn't it? How do we make it both? Just get rid of any grinds in WoW that aren't leveling and gearing. Can't you do both in Final Fantasy XIV? No. You can have an alt in Final Fantasy XIV, but unless you want to pay money to skip the story, it's kind of prohibitive, really. You're not supposed to do it. You can, but it's not how the game's designed, whereas WoW absolutely is designed to do it like that. All I want to do when I play an alt, and I really enjoy playing alts, I think it's so much fun, but all I want to do is I want to level it, and I like leveling it, and I want to gear it. So every other grind that's connected to that, I would make account wide. That means at a base level, story progress. There is no way I should be playing the story to unlock Korthia once I've done it on my main. Why would you do that? There's no way I should be doing the intro scenario again if I've done it on my main. I should be given the option of doing it if I want, but there's no way I should have to do it. Reputations. There's no way, especially when so much of patch content is built on doing reputations and grinding reputations and building reputations. And when I say reputations, I mean zone-wide progress in general. So that includes the Cypher in 9.2. That includes your artifact research in Korthia. That would include I would actually include Covenant progress in that as well. I don't understand how if I've kind of unlocked something in Kyrian on one character, when my other character goes there, that progress isn't there anymore in the world. It's kind of weird to me. All of that should be account wide, 100%. Currencies should be account bound and not character bound. So I should be able to send gold to my Horde alts for a start. I should be able to send bind on equip gear to my Horde alts if I want to. I should be able to send excess soul cinders, soul ash, ciphers, anima, everything to all of my alts. Something which usually gets implemented a little bit later on, but that should just be standard. All of this stuff should be standard. And then you've got a case where actually, to all intents and purposes, WoW does work exactly like Final Fantasy XIV and doing everything on one character. Because practically, you are doing everything on one character. All of the kind of the grindy progress, which I maintain is a reason I like WoW. I like grinding stuff. I like unlocking stuff. I like grinding progress on my character. I find that fun. I like reputations. I like unlocking new things I can buy off reputation vendors. I like unlocking Zereth Mortis and powering up my Cypher and unlocking parts of the Covenant and unlocking parts of the Order Hall in Legion. That's fun to me once. And I love doing story. Once. And the thing is, at the moment, especially when it comes to story, but I also think with covenants and things like that, the systems themselves are held back because in the back of their mind, and this happens particularly with story, I think, the designers are thinking this has to be done on multiple characters. And I say the story could be so much more complex and so much longer and so much more involved if it was only designed to be done once. I don't want my story writers at any point in writing the story, at any point in making quests and implementing them, I don't want my story writers to be thinking, will this be fun a second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth time? I don't want them to be thinking that. I just want them to focus on a story that you only ever have to play once and make it all the more involved for it. Yeah, a whole lot more compelling. I mean, you do that and you've got the best of both worlds. Right? You've got to all intents and purposes, it's like you're doing everything on one character, but you still retain the fun of having different characters for different classes, which is something I genuinely really like. And I want to level my characters. You have to level a new class in Final Fantasy XIV, right? So, I may have just started playing Sage on this character, but I still have to level them. If I wanted to start a scholar right now on this one character that I play in Final Fantasy XIV, I'd still have to level them, from 1 all the way up. And that's just as repetitive as it is in WoW. Arguably even more so. So that's still a gameplay element in Final Fantasy XIV, and as it should be, right? And, I still have to gear that different class. There's still the cool weapons that I have to grind out for those classes. And so to all intents and purposes, in WoW, just having all the reputations and all of the kind of the zone progress and kind of covenant progress, order hall progress, currency progress, having all of that account wide, or at the very least, when it comes to currencies, account kind of tradable, practically, and to all intents and purposes, means that you do everything on one character in WoW, but you still have the cool thing about WoW. of changing characters for different classes, which I personally think is awesome. I love approaching different quests in different ways depending on the class I'm playing. Absolutely. And you should still be able to do that in WoW, because again, they shouldn't force you to skip. When I say like you shouldn't have to do story again on alts, that's definitely true, but I'm not saying they should force you to skip story. I'm saying you should have that choice, right? You know, Threads of Fate does that pretty well. I would love to play alts if I only had to level once and then do gearing, no rep at all. Exactly, and that's exactly what I'm saying. So it would be so, and here's the thing, and that's what we're talking about. I think a lot of people, when they say what this thread says, right? When they say, would you like just having one character instead of multiple alts? What they're talking about is the fact they don't like having to do all the grinds and stuff over and over again. And apart from like a little bit more effort going into gearing than it does in Final Fantasy XIV, you could have the best of both worlds. So you don't even have to change the way the game is built. You don't have to change the game. You just have to make these certain things account-wide. And I think, you know, the world changes, right? And the way people play games change. You could make an argument that WoW are completely right to do it as they've done it up until this point. But we're at a stage now where I think everyone would like this difference. I think the majority of people... Is there anyone that definitely wouldn't want what I've just described? No shame. No shame. And I'd love to hear your... Why, Tankin? Like, genuinely, you know I'm not going to eat your ass out for this. Like, what... I like the uniqueness. So you like having to grind Korthia on different alts. I like Threads of Fate. I just need some tuning and fixes. But this wouldn't get rid of Threads of Fate, because you still got to level your character, right? You still got to level each alt, so you'd still use Threads of Fate if you like, or level through the quests even. So you'd still have to level, so Threads of Fate would still be a thing. You'd still have to gear, so you'd still have to go into like dungeons and LFR or whatever you do, or raid, or any other way that you have to gear. You would still have to go to Korthia if you wanted that gear, but the thing is, like, all the unlocks that you'd already done in the zone on your main would be there and unlocked. Sometimes I like a lot to do things again with certain alts, but there are some other things I would like to skip all the things. Yeah, totally, and I love playing alts, and I love progressing on my alts. It's not like I want them leveled and geared. I want to do all that. Don't they make everything account-wide eventually anyway? Sort of, not really. Like, they'll never make the Korthia progress account-wide, for example. They just make it much easier to catch up. So they kind of meet you halfway there, but I just think it should be... grinding is the poison of MMO. I disagree. I think grinding is like one of the core components of MMOs, and is something that people like about the genre. This whole kind of like get rid of grinds in MMOs thing is kind of missing the wood for the trees a little bit. It's kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, if you ask me. Like, people like grinding in MMOs. Like, I like doing this shit on one character. I like grinding in Final Fantasy XIV. I like grinding in WoW. The problem I have with WoW is when I've unlocked all of Korthia on one character, and then I have to do it on all my other characters, because that's not fun. The problem I have in WoW is when I've unlocked the major reputation that I need in a patch to get all the stuff I need, and then I have to do it on all my alts. The problem I have in WoW is when I've like unlocked all the cool ciphers on the cipher of the first ones in 9.2 and done all that, and now I can play in a way that I've been saving towards and playing towards, and then I also have to do it on all my alts. And the problem that is you could genuinely make the one-player grinds, the stuff like the cipher, and the stuff like story, and the stuff like reputations, you could make them a bit more involved, and you could actually make them longer, and I don't think people would mind. In fact, I think there's a lot of people that would actually enjoy that, because they know that they don't have to do it again on alts. If you only have to do these grinds once, you could genuinely make them a bit longer, and I think people wouldn't just not mind it, I think people would like it. Because, far from being the poison of MMOs, I think grinds are actually one of the main draws of MMOs. What's the most fun thing about New World? Going out and chopping down trees. That's as grindy as it comes, but that's the best thing about New World. You go out, you cut down trees, other people are out cutting down trees. That's fucking awesome. It's the best thing about that game, and it's brilliant. It feels amazing. Like, you can make these grinds more involved and longer if you don't have to do them on other characters. You could make professions a lot more involved if that was the case too. I think there's a little more to New World. Oh, there definitely is. I didn't say like what is the entirety of New World. I said what is the most fun part of New World. Current WoW grinds kind of just feel like chores, maintenance. Yeah, but one of the reasons I feel like that is because so the timers on the cipher stuff is bullshit. But I usually enjoy the majority of that stuff on my main. I just don't want to do it on my alts. And I eat, like, people are saying in the chat they'd like to have all professions on one character. Yeah, okay, if people want that, I'm down with it. Why not? But I also like having different alts with different professions, because you can't do that. I've got like one enchanting alt. You could still do that, but there wouldn't be the need to do it. And I quite like the need to do it, personally. But yeah, man, if people want like all the professions of one character, why not? Who cares? Do it. Professions need a big overhaul. I completely agree. And like I say, for me, the future of professions in WoW is player housing. At the moment, you're limited with professions in WoW precisely because the only thing that you connect professions to is player power. And that means they have to be accessible and feasibly done by all characters. Because anything that's player power related does have to be. Anything that's player power related does have to be accessible by every character. And that holds professions back in WoW a lot. And transmog, but yeah, exactly. But also player power. and while it doesn't matter if it is also connected to other things, while it's connected to player power, you're always going to be limited, right? For me, you want professions not to be connected to player power at all, personally. I think that it should be just transmogs and like unique transmogs that are only available to crafting, and like cool transmogs like fucking sailor suits and shit like that. Make them profession things. But the real kind of meat and potatoes of that would be player housing, where you've got professions making stuff for people's houses, which is disconnected from player power at like every stage. So it's tables, it's curtains, it's pictures on the wall, it's ornaments, it's floorboards, it's wallpaper, it's roofs, it's windows, it's stuff like that. Because then you can make it like as involved and as difficult and as time consuming as you like, and it's completely disconnected from player power, so you can. Bowls of fruit, you better believe it. So what people want from professions in WoW basically is they want to dedicate themselves to being a profession person instead of like a raider or something like that. They want being a crafter to be the way they play the game, which is not really what you can do in WoW right now. But if you had player housing, you absolutely could.